10 worst serial killers of all time. Who doesn't love a thriller movie with at least one psychotic yet super smart serial killer who not only managed to kill numerous people, but also stayed clean in front of the law? And in case he gets caught, he is still not behind the bars. Well, surprisingly, these incidents don't only happen in movies. We have real-life examples of serial killers who got away from the law and the bars. These killers, for some reason, got away with their crime and are walking on the streets right now. Knowing this fact, would you go out in the streets like you used to? Let's figure that out by the end of the video. These are the top 10 serial killers of all time, hat or never caught. And stay tuned to watch till number 1, because you might not want to take the risk. Number 10, Bible John. Though this one is dead now. Between the years 1968 through 1969 in Glasgow, Scotland, 3 women were killed between the ages of 25 to 32. It was reported that the women visited the same place called the Barrowland Ballroom, a bar where they'd meet the mysterious man, enjoy a drink with him, and leave with him afterwards. The women were brutally raped, beaten, and killed by this man, who people gave the name Bible John. He was often seen in the bar, giving short and quick sermons on adultery, quoting verses from the Bible before. He is said to have killed 3 women after he met them in the bar, but the police never got to catch him first. His first victim, a 25-year-old girl named Patricia Docker, was found naked in the doorway of a garage in South Glasgow. Her body had shown extreme blunt force trauma, as well as signs of strangulation. Bible John used his signature killing techniques for the murder of his 2 other victims, Jemima McDonald and Helen Puttock. Number 9, the Alphabet Murderer. This one is pretty interesting because he did not kill just anybody anywhere. There was a plan and an unknown motive behind every individual he killed. This one was not only the muse for future killers, like Joseph Nassau and Kenneth Bianchi, who copied his strategy, but most of the thriller shows we watch on TV today as well. Between the years 1971 to 1973 in Rochester, New York, 3 girls were raped, strangled, and buried in different places. But there was a pattern in the murder other than the method of killing. Here was alliteration in the names and the place where they were dumped. Carmen Colon was dumped in Churchville, Michelle Mienza in Macedonia, and Wanda Wakowitz in Webster. The killer clearly had a thing for alphabets, hence the name he got since he was never caught. The police tried matching the DNA of other killers, mentioned earlier, but the Alphabet Murderer stayed anonymous and was never caught. Number 8, the Freeway Phantom. Racism has been a serious issue since a long time, and killers like these just made it worse. Back in 1971, about 6 girls were abducted in Washington, D.C. and killed. These were not just any girls, they were black girls, between the ages of 10 to 18. This was not just an intolerant racist serial killer, but a pedophile too. He would abduct girls going to school, store, park, basically anywhere the girls went alone. The poor little minors were first raped, then strangled to death, and this cruel man would throw their bodies along the highway. The second last rape victim was found along the highway as per the tradition, but with a note this time. It read, "This is tantamount to my insensitivity to people, especially women. I will admit the others when you can catch me, if you can." It was signed Freeway Phantom. The authorities never caught the executioner, and the files have been lost, making solving the case nearly impossible today, thus making it more difficult for women to step out of their homes, especially women of color. Number 7, Redhead Murderer. The Bible Belt has always been a home for conservative yet powerful evangelical Protestants who play a significantly strong role in society, politics, and church. But between 1978 to 1992, even these powerful religious figures could not do anything about the threat of murders that took place along the belt in the states of Arkansas, Kentucky, Mississippi, Pennsylvania, and Tennessee. One thing common among the victims was their red hair. Every victim was a redhead. The bodies were dumped on the highway, making the police suspect the victims to be either involved in sex work or hitchhiking, until a pattern was noticed: the red hair. About 6 to 11 murders were reported each on the highway, with signs of blunt force trauma, strangulation, and stab wounds. Though the police could not pin down a suspect for the first murder, but by the last murder, there were 2 suspects being interviewed. However, the real killer is still a mystery. Was he even one of these 2 suspects being interviewed? Did he kill more people, but change the pattern this time? We will never know. Number 6, Colonial Parkway Killer. We can never tell the motive of a serial killer, especially when there's a pattern in the method of killing or the similarity in the victims. Back in 1986 to 1989, there was a killer who had something against couples specifically. In Virginia, 3 couples were murdered, and the 4th is assumed dead too. Outside the Colonial Parkway stood a killer, waiting for couples to have a moment and spend quality time together before he killed them brutally and made sure it was the last time they had a good time together. There were no signs of assault or robbery, just a murder, and the cars would appear outside the park a few days after the murder. In case of the 4th couple, the bodies were never found, but the car with clothes in it was found outside the park, and it was assumed that it was the work of the same murderer. A lot of theories were proposed regarding the killings, but the case remains unsolved till date. The murderer had a pretty clean hand doing his job. Number 5. Servant Girl Annihilator. Crazy axe murderers don't only exist in novels or movies. Sometimes they hop out of the fictional world and enter our world uninvited. Between the years 1884 to 1885, a mad axe killer went out in Austin and killed only women. Women were not just blessed with an easy death, where he'd just kill them in one swift strike. Instead, he followed a protocol. First, he drowned them alive in their beds. Next, he take them outside and tortured them mercilessly before finally killing them. 6 of the victims were found dead, with sharp objects inserted right within their ears. As horrifying as the murders were, what's more horrifying is that the person who committed these heinous acts of violence was never found. To present date, this case remains one of the most famous unsolved crimes. Up to 400 suspects were interviewed, but nobody could be identified as the killer. But there was one major suspect that was suspected by several noted historians, Jack the Ripper, but even he was a suspect, never confirmed. Number 4. Long Island Serial Killer. From 1996 to 2010, some say 2013, a killer on Long Island killed 10 to 16 women who were reported to be sex workers. This unknown man, who is commonly known as Lisk, would arrange a meetup with these women through Craigslist. The first body discovered was packed in a disintegrated burlap sack, and the police took it as just another murder in the area. One after another, soon there are numerous dead bodies spotted within the same area, which pointed towards the presence of this anonymous serial killer. Despite all these murders, over the span of almost 20 years, and numerous suspects interrogated, the police till day could not find the real killer. This proves that he may have had detailed knowledge of law enforcement, or maybe even direct links to law enforcement, which have thus far helped him avoid detection. But this is just one of the 100 theories related to his murders. He's still out there, and you might want to keep an eye out for the killer. Number 3. Cleveland Torso Murderer. Another unknown murderer who terrorized Cleveland and Ohio from 1935 to 1938. He killed 12 to 20 people in a unique way. This killer was not obsessed with women. He was obsessed with beheading both men and women and dumping their bodies in the neighborhood, impoverished Cleveland neighborhood, known as Kingsbury Run, which gave him his famous name, the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run. Most of his victims were unidentified because of the missing head, which was often discovered a few days later. The first victim identified was Edward Andrassi, who was found with another unidentified male, while Andrassi's body was found some 30 feet away from the remains of the identified male. Number 2. Highway of Tears Murders. As the name suggests, this murderer dumped his victims on Highway 16 of British Columbia that became popular as the Highway of Tears. From 1969 to present day, this anonymous killer has managed to kill more than 40 girls and dump them along the highway. Even though some detectives assume that this is the work of multiple killers, most of them point fingers at the possibility of one man killing all these women based on racial discrimination, as well as general grudge against women. The police have its suspects, but they don't think they could ever resolve all 40-plus cases. Number 1. The Zodiac Killer. This one is pretty interesting. Between the 60s and 70s, a murderer went out and did not kill people based on their ethnicity or social status, either on the basis of their gender or personal grudge. This killer brutally killed people and played with the media anonymously, sending them letters and cryptograms, daring the public to crack his puzzles and catch him. Looks like someone was enjoying the undivided attention. Initially, everyone was confused, but upon deciphering one of his encrypted letters, they found out that he was collecting slaves for his afterlife. The killer also claimed to have killed, or may we say, collected 37 slaves for his afterlife. However, the police only managed to find 5 dead bodies and 2 highly injured individuals, but failed to catch the mystery man. These are the top 10 crazy murderers that were never caught. Some of them are dead, but others are still out there, so you better keep an eye out for them and stay safe. If you liked the video, then don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel.